The snowplow blade scraped against the asphalt of my driveway as I backed my truck into the garage, exhausted after clearing snow for 18 straight hours across northern Michigan. My fingers were numb despite wearing insulated gloves, and all I wanted was a hot shower in my bed. That's when I saw her marching across my front yard in knee-deep snow, wearing a purple puffer jacket and an expression that promised nothing but trouble. I am Owen Zimmerman, and I have owned a small snow removal business in Traverse City, Michigan for the past 7 years. I bought my property on Maple Ridge Drive specifically because it was outside the HOA boundaries that governed the new development next door. I had done my research, hired a real estate attorney, and made absolutely certain that my 2-acre lot was grandfathered in and completely independent. The developers had tried to rope me into their Pinewood Estates Homeowners Association 3 years ago when they broke ground, but my property deed was ironclad. "Excuse me," the woman called out, her voice sharp enough to cut through the howling wind. "I need to speak with you immediately." I climbed down from my truck, my boots crunching in the snow. "Can this wait? It's been a long night." She planted herself in front of me, hands on her hips. She looked to be in her mid-40s, with blonde highlights that were fighting a losing battle against gray roots, and the kind of entitled posture I had learned to recognize over the years. "No, it cannot wait. I am Patricia Hendricks, president of the Pinewood Estates HOA board, and we have a serious problem." I pulled off my gloves and tucked them into my coat pocket. "Okay, what's the problem?" "The problem," she said, emphasizing each word like I was a particularly slow child, "is that our community lot has not been plowed. We have residents who cannot get in or out of the neighborhood. This is completely unacceptable." I stared at her, waiting for the part where this became my problem. When she just glared back at me expectantly, I said, "I'm sorry to hear that. Have you called your contracted snow removal service?" Patricia's face flushed red. "They claim they cannot get here until tomorrow afternoon." "Tomorrow? Do you have any idea how many people are trapped? We have elderly residents who might need medical attention. We have people who need to get to work." "That sounds like a real emergency," I said, "but I still don't understand what this has to do with me." "You have a plow," she said, gesturing at my truck like I might have forgotten it was there. "You are clearly in the snow removal business. I am asking you to plow our main entrance and the central parking lot. It would take you maybe an hour." I was so tired that I almost laughed. "Madam, I have been working since 3 yesterday afternoon. I have clients who pay me for my services, and I have fulfilled all of my contractual obligations. I'm going inside to get some sleep." "I am offering you a job," Patricia said, her voice rising. "This is a business opportunity. You should be thanking me. Are you offering to pay me?" She blinked. "Well, no. This is a community service. You live right next door. You should want to help your neighbors." There it was. I had been waiting for it. "Mrs. Hendricks, I don't live in Pinewood Estates. I'm not part of your HOA. My property predates your development by 40 years. You're not my neighbors in any official capacity. And I run a business, not a charity. If you want to hire me at my standard emergency rate, which is $250 per hour with a 3-hour minimum, I'll add you to my schedule for later today after I've gotten some rest." Patricia's mouth fell open. $250 an hour. That's highway robbery. That's my emergency rate for same-day service during an active snowstorm. My regular rate is $120 per hour, but I book those jobs weeks in advance. Take it or leave it." "This is outrageous," she sputtered. "We are a residential community. You cannot possibly expect us to pay commercial rates." "Then call your regular service and wait until tomorrow," I said, turning toward my front door. "I'm sure your residents will understand." "Wait," Patricia called after me. Just wait one moment. You can't just refuse to help people in need. There are laws about this sort of thing." I paused with my hand on the doorknob and looked back at her. "What laws exactly?" she faltered, clearly making it up as she went along. "Good Samaritan laws, community responsibility. You could be held liable if something happens to one of our residents. Good Samaritan laws protect people who voluntarily offer help, not compel them to provide it. And I'm not part of your community, so I have zero responsibility to you or your residents. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going inside." I walked into my house and closed the door, watching through the window as Patricia stood in my yard for another minute, clearly fuming. Finally, she trudged back toward the development, pulling out her phone. I felt a small twinge of guilt. There probably were elderly people who needed help, but I had learned the hard way not to do free work for entitled people. They never appreciated it, and they always came back expecting more. I took a hot shower and fell into bed, setting my alarm for 6 hours later. I had 3 more clients scheduled for the afternoon, assuming the snow finally stopped falling. I woke up to the sound of my doorbell ringing insistently. I checked my phone and groaned. I had been asleep for maybe 90 minutes. The doorbell rang again, followed by aggressive knocking. I dragged myself out of bed and shuffled to the front door in my sweatpants and a t-shirt. Patricia Hendricks stood on my porch, but she wasn't alone this time. She had brought 2 other women with her, both of them looking equally annoyed. One was short and round with a tight perm, the other tall and angular with a pointed nose. "Can I help you?" I asked, not bothering to hide my irritation. "Mr. Zimmerman," Patricia said in a voice that suggested she was being incredibly patient with me. "This is Barbara Chen and Linda Westbrook. They are also on the HOA board. We have discussed your situation, and we have decided to make you a very generous offer." "I'm listening," I said, leaning against the doorframe. Barbara, the woman with the perm, stepped forward. "We will pay you $100 to plow our entrance and parking lot. That's very fair compensation for an hour of work. My emergency rate is $250 per hour with a 3-hour minimum," I repeated. "That's $750. Linda, the tall one, made a noise of disgust. "That's absolutely ridiculous. You're trying to take advantage of us during a crisis. That's price gouging. Price gouging laws apply to essential goods and services during declared emergencies, and they vary by state," I said. "Michigan's law specifically addresses fuel, food, and consumer goods. Snow plowing doesn't fall under those statutes, and even if it did, I'm not raising my rates. This is what I always charge for emergency same-day service." "How very convenient that you happen to know all of that," Patricia said coldly. "I run a business. I know the laws that apply to my business. Now, if you'll excuse me, I was sleeping." "We could report you to the Better Business Bureau," Barbara threatened. "For what?" "Not taking a job I didn't want at a price I didn't agree to." "Go ahead. I have a perfect rating with the BBB, and this isn't going to change that." I started to close the door, but Patricia stuck her foot in the gap. "You are being incredibly selfish. What if someone has a medical emergency? What if someone dies because you couldn't be bothered to spend 1 hour helping your community?" "Then they should call an ambulance," I said. "Emergency services have 4-wheel drive, and once again, it's not my community. I specifically bought property outside your HOA to avoid this exact kind of thing." Patricia pulled her foot back, her face twisted with anger. "Fine. We will figure this out ourselves, but don't expect any favors from us in the future." "I have never expected any favors from you. I expect you to leave me alone, which is what I paid for when I bought property outside your jurisdiction." I closed the door and locked it, then watched through the window as the 3 women huddled together in my driveway, talking animatedly. After a few minutes, they walked back toward the development. I returned to bed, but sleep didn't come as easily this time. I had a bad feeling that this wasn't over. I was right. 2 hours later, I woke up again, this time to the sound of someone laying on my doorbell continuously. I checked my phone and saw 3 missed calls from an unknown number and a text message from my friend Derek, who lived in Pinewood Estates. The text read, "Dude, did you seriously refuse to plow our neighborhood? Patricia is losing her mind. She's telling everyone you're going to be reported to the police." I groaned and hauled myself out of bed again. This time when I answered the door, Patricia was alone, but she was holding her phone in front of her like a weapon. "I am giving you one final chance," she said. "Either you come plow our lot right now for free or I am calling the police." I rubbed my eyes. "On what grounds? Reckless endangerment. Failure to render aid. I've been researching and you have a responsibility to help people in danger." "No, I don't." Those laws apply to specific situations where someone is in immediate physical danger, and you have the ability to help without endangering yourself. Your residence being inconvenienced by snow doesn't qualify. People could die, Patricia insisted. Then call an ambulance. Call the fire department, call county services. Don't harass a private citizen who doesn't work for you and doesn't owe you anything. Patricia's face was nearly purple now. "Fine. Have it your way." She jabbed at her phone screen, and I realized with disbelief that she was actually doing it. She was calling 911. "Yes, hello. I need to report an emergency," Patricia said loudly, maintaining eye contact with me. "I have a neighbor who is refusing to provide necessary emergency services during a snowstorm, and we have elderly residents who could be in danger." I could hear the faint sound of the dispatcher's voice, but couldn't make out the words. "Pinewood Estates on Maple Ridge Drive in Traverse City," Patricia continued. "Yes, it's a residential community. Our snow removal service cannot get here until tomorrow, and we have a neighbor with a plow who is refusing to help us." There was a longer pause. Patricia's confident expression began to waver. "Yes, we offered to pay him," she said, her voice becoming defensive. "He's demanding an outrageous amount, $750. Another pause. The confident look disappeared entirely. "No, he's not part of our HOA. He lives next door, but he has the equipment and it's an emergency." I couldn't hear exactly what the dispatcher was saying, but I could hear the tone, and it wasn't sympathetic. "But people could be in danger," Patricia tried again, her voice becoming shrill. The dispatcher's response was longer this time, and I watched Patricia's face cycle through several emotions. Disbelief, anger, embarrassment. "That's not he should this isn't about," Patricia stammered. Finally, she lowered the phone. Her face was red, but this time it wasn't from anger. "The dispatcher says that you're a private contractor and you're not obligated to work for free. She says if we have a genuine medical emergency, we should call back and request an ambulance." "Sounds like a smart dispatcher," I said. "She also said," Patricia continued, her voice tight, "that misusing 911 for non-emergencies is a crime, and if we call back about this again, we could be cited." I couldn't help it. I grinned. "Well, that's something to keep in mind." Patricia stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see the gears turning in her head. Then she spun on her heel and marched away without another word. I went back inside and called Derek. He answered on the first ring. "Owen, man, what is happening?" he asked. "Patricia just sent out an email to the whole neighborhood saying you're refusing to help during an emergency. She wanted me to plow your lot for free," I said. When I quoted her my actual rate, she called 911 on me. The dispatcher told her I don't work for free. Derek was quiet for a moment, then burst out laughing. "She actually called the cops on you for not doing free work," Called 911, which is even stupider. Dispatcher shut her down pretty quick. This is insane. Look, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. For what it's worth, most of us aren't like Patricia. She's been on a power trip ever since she got elected HOA president last year. It's not your fault, I said, but I need to get some sleep. I have actual paying clients this afternoon. Yeah, of course. Hey, if you want to send me your rate information, I might need my driveway done later this week. I'll text you my standard rates. Friends and family discount applies. After I hung up with Derek, I tried to sleep again, but I was too wound up. I lay in bed thinking about Patricia and the HOA board and wondering if this was finally over. Something told me it wasn't. I gave up on sleep around noon and made myself a large pot of coffee and a sandwich. While I was eating, I noticed movement outside my window. I looked out and saw two figures standing at the edge of my property, right where my land met the Pinewood Estates development. One of them was holding what looked like a surveying tool. I pulled on my boots and coat and went outside. As I got closer, I recognized Patricia and a man I had never seen before. He was middle-aged, wearing an expensive-looking wool coat and holding a professional surveyor's level. "What's going on?" I asked. Patricia looked up with an expression of smug satisfaction. "We're having the property lines surveyed. I have reason to believe that your driveway encroaches on HOA property." The surveyor, looking uncomfortable, said, "Sir, I'm just doing a job I was hired for. I'm Gordon Mayer with Great Lakes Surveying." "I have a survey from when I bought the property 7 years ago," I said. "The boundaries are clearly marked." "Surveys can be wrong," Patricia said. "If even 1 inch of your property crosses into ours, you're subject to HOA rules and fees, including back payments for the last 7 years. I felt a cold anger settle in my gut. "You're wasting your money and his time, but be my guest." I went back inside and dug through my filing cabinet until I found the survey from my home purchase. I also found the additional survey I had commissioned 3 years ago when the development was being built, specifically to prevent this exact kind of dispute. I had paid a premium for it at the time, thinking I was being paranoid. Now I was grateful. I made copies of both surveys and took them outside. Gordon Mayer was methodically measuring and marking points along the property line. Patricia stood nearby, wrapped in her purple coat, watching him work with eager anticipation. "Mr. Mayer," I called out, "I have 2 previous surveys here that you might want to reference." He walked over and examined the documents I handed him. His eyebrows rose as he looked at the second one. "This is from Precision Land Surveys. They're one of the best firms in the state, and this was done just 3 years ago." "Right before the development broke ground," I confirmed. "I wanted to make sure there were no boundary disputes." Gordon nodded slowly. "This is going to show the same thing I'm finding now, give or take a few inches for GPS drift. Your property is clearly defined and there's actually a 5-foot buffer between your lot and the HOA boundaries." Patricia's face fell. "That can't be right. Check again." "Madam, I've been doing this for 22 years. The measurements are clear." Mr. Zimmerman's property does not encroach on the HOA land. In fact, his northern boundary is a full 5 feet inside his property line, probably to account for his driveway easement. "But there has to be something," Patricia insisted. "What about his mailbox? That's on the road." "The HOA maintains that road." "The road is a public easement," I said. "I checked when you tried this same argument 3 years ago. The county maintains it, not your HOA. My mailbox placement was approved by the Postal Service and the county zoning board." Gordon Mayer started packing up his equipment. "Mrs. Hendricks, I'll send you a full report, but I can tell you right now that everything is in order. Mr. Zimmerman's property boundaries are exactly where they should be. Patricia's mouth opened and closed several times. Finally, she said, "Fine, but this isn't over." "Actually, it is," I said. "And Mrs. Hendricks, if you continue to harass me, I'm going to start documenting everything and pursue a restraining order. I have tried to be patient, but you've now disrupted my sleep multiple times, called 911 on me, and hired a surveyor to try to find some way to force me under your authority. I'm done being nice about this." Gordon Mayer gave me a sympathetic look as he carried his equipment back to his truck. Patricia stood in the snow, staring at me with undisguised hatred. "You think you're so smart," she said quietly. "You think you've won, but you're making enemies, Mr. Zimmerman. Life is going to get very difficult for you." "Is that a threat?" I asked, pulling out my phone. "Because I'm happy to record you making threats and take that to the police as well." She turned and walked away without another word. I watched her go, feeling a knot of worry in my stomach despite my brave words. I had dealt with difficult customers before, but there was something about Patricia's intensity that unsettled me. She wasn't going to let this go. I spent the afternoon fulfilling my scheduled contracts, plowing out a medical office building, 2 restaurants, and a small shopping plaza. The work was routine and satisfying, a nice contrast to the drama of the morning. My clients paid me without complaint, grateful to have their lots cleared so they could operate. I got home around 8 that evening and heated up leftover pizza for dinner. I was scrolling through my email when I saw a message from the City of Traverse City Building Department. My stomach dropped even before I opened it. The email informed me that a complaint had been filed regarding my home-based business, specifically concerning commercial vehicle parking in a residential zone. I was required to appear at a hearing in 2 weeks to address the complaint or potentially face fines and a cease and desist order. I called the number listed in the email, even though it was after business hours. To my surprise, someone answered. "Building Department, this is Marcus." "Hi, my name is Owen Zimmerman. I just received an email about a complaint regarding my business. I was hoping to get some more information." "Let me pull up your file," Marcus said. I heard typing in the background. "Okay, here it is. You run a snow removal business from your residence on Maple Ridge Drive." "Yes, but I have a commercial vehicle permit, and my zoning allows for home-based businesses. I checked all of this when I started my company 7 years ago." "Right, I see that in the notes." "The complaint is specifically about overnight parking of a commercial vehicle in a residential zone and possible zoning violations. It was filed this afternoon by a Patricia Hendricks." "Of course it was," I muttered. "You know the complainant?" Marcus asked. "She's the HOA president for the development next to my property. She's been harassing me because I wouldn't plow their lot for free. I'm not part of their HOA, but she seems to think she has authority over me anyway." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Off the record, we get a lot of complaints from HOA boards trying to extend their authority beyond their actual jurisdiction. On the record, I have to investigate any complaint that's filed. But I can tell you that if your permits and zoning are in order, you don't have anything to worry about." "Can I send you my documentation before the hearing?" I asked. "Absolutely. Email me everything you have: your business license, vehicle permits, zoning approval, anything relevant. I'll review it before the hearing. If everything is in order, this will be a pretty quick meeting." I thanked him and hung up, then spent the next hour scanning and organizing documents. I sent everything to Marcus with a detailed explanation of my situation, including a timeline of Patricia's harassment. I stopped short of calling it a vendetta, but I made it clear that this was a pattern of behavior. The next few days were relatively quiet. I worked my regular jobs, caught up on sleep, and avoided driving past the Pinewood Estates entrance. The snow finally stopped, and the regular contracted service apparently cleared the HOA lot, because I stopped seeing angry messages on the community Facebook page that Derek had shown me. Then, on Thursday morning, I woke up to find a letter taped to my front door. It was from the Pinewood Estates HOA, addressed to me, marked Final Notice in red letters. I opened it, curious about what they could possibly be demanding now. The letter informed me that the HOA board had voted to implement a new good neighbor policy that required all properties adjacent to the development to maintain their yards to HOA standards. Failure to comply would result in the HOA filing complaints with the city and pursuing legal action for diminished property values. The letter listed several violations. My grass was too long in the back 40 of my property. It was winter, there was no grass visible. My barn was aesthetically inconsistent with community standards. The barn was 100 years old and had been there decades before the development, and my truck parking was unsightly and detrimental to property values. I read the letter twice, then called my real estate attorney, Linda Richardson. I had kept her on retainer specifically for situations like this. Linda Richardson's office, her secretary answered. "Hi, this is Owen Zimmerman. I need to speak with Linda about an HOA issue." "One moment, please." Linda came on the line a minute later. "Owen, good to hear from you. What's happening?" I explained the situation, starting with Patricia's initial demand that I plow for free and ending with the letter I had just received. Linda listened without interrupting. "Okay," she said when I finished. "First, that letter is completely meaningless. They have zero authority over your property. Second, this is harassment and it's starting to cross into actionable territory. Can you scan and send me everything you have? All the documentation of her visits, the 911 call, the survey attempt, and this letter. I can do that right now." "Good. I'm going to draft a cease and desist letter making it very clear that any further harassment will result in legal action. I'm also going to send a letter to the HOA board as a whole, not just Patricia, because if she's doing this with board approval, they're all liable." "What if she doesn't stop?" I asked. "Then we pursue a restraining order and potentially a harassment lawsuit." "You have documentation of a clear pattern of behavior. She's called emergency services inappropriately, attempted to manufacture property disputes, filed spurious complaints with the city, and now she's threatening legal action based on authority she doesn't have. Any judge would see this for what it is." I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. "Thanks, Linda. I'll send you everything within the hour." After I hung up, I spent time documenting everything I could remember about my interactions with Patricia, including dates and times. I scanned the HOA letter and sent everything to Linda. Then I went about my day, plowing an apartment complex and 2 small business parks. That afternoon, Derek called me. "Owen, I need to give you a heads up about something." "What's going on?" "Patricia called a special HOA meeting for tonight. She's putting forward a motion to use community funds to sue you." "Sue me for what?" I asked incredulously. "Diminished property values due to your quote-unquote commercial activities." She has some story about how having a business next door makes the neighborhood less desirable and has hurt home values. She's claiming you owe damages. That's insane. My property was here first. Anyone who bought in that development knew there was an established residence next door. I know that. Most of the residents know that. But Patricia has a few allies on the board and she's good at making things sound reasonable when you don't have all the facts. I wanted you to know so you're not blindsided. "Can you tell me how the vote goes?" I asked. "I'll be at the meeting." "I'll text you." That evening, I tried to distract myself with TV, but I kept checking my phone. Finally, around 9:30, Derek texted me. Motion failed. 5 votes against, 3 for, 1 abstention. Patricia flipped out. Several residents pointed out that suing you would be a waste of community funds and we'd probably lose. She's threatening to call a vote of no confidence in the board for not backing her. I texted back. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate you looking out for me. No problem. For what it's worth, she's making herself look crazy. People are starting to question her judgment. I felt relieved, but I knew this still wasn't over. Patricia had too much invested now. She had made this personal, and people like her didn't back down just because they were losing. I was right. Friday afternoon, I came home to find a code enforcement officer from the city parked in front of my house. He was a young guy, probably mid-20s, looking uncomfortable as I pulled into my driveway. "Can I help you?" I asked, climbing out of my truck. "Are you Owen Zimmerman?" he asked. "That's me. I'm Jake Morrison with Code Enforcement. I've received a complaint about possible zoning violations on your property, specifically commercial use in a residential zone, commercial vehicle storage, and an unpermitted structure." "I have permits for everything," I said. "And this is the second complaint this week. The first one is being handled through the building department." Jake looked even more uncomfortable. "I understand this might feel like harassment, but I have to investigate any complaints that are filed. Can I take a look around?" "Do you have a warrant?" I asked. "No, but if you refuse to let me inspect, I can get one." I considered my options. If I refused, it would drag this out longer. If I cooperated, Jake could see that everything was legitimate. "Okay, but I want to document this." "I'm going to record our conversation and the inspection." "That's fine," Jake said. I pulled out my phone and started recording, stating the date, time, and purpose of the inspection for the record. Then I walked Jake around my property, showing him my business license, my commercial vehicle permit, and my zoning approval. I showed him the barn, which was clearly marked as a pre-existing structure on my deed. I showed him where I parked my truck, which was on my own property behind my house, not visible from the street. Jake took notes and photos. When we finished, he said, "Mr. Zimmerman, I don't see any violations here. Everything appears to be properly permitted and in compliance with zoning regulations." "So I won't be hearing from your office again?" I asked. "Not about this complaint. But I should tell you that if the person keeps filing complaints, we have to keep investigating. I'm sorry. I know it's a pain." "Can you do anything about false complaints?" I asked. "If we determine that someone is repeatedly filing false complaints in bad faith, we can pursue action against them. But that's usually a last resort." After Jake left, I called Linda Richardson again. She answered on the second ring. "They're not stopping," I said, and explained about the code enforcement visit. "Okay, this is officially over the line," Linda said. "I'm filing for a restraining order on Monday morning. This is clear and documented harassment. And I'm going to suggest you file a police report as well, just to have it on record." "Will that do anything?" I asked. "It creates a paper trail. If she escalates, and at this point I think she might, you want to have documentation that you've been reporting this from the beginning." I drove to the Traverse City Police Department and spent an hour filing a report with an officer named Sarah Kim. She took my statement and looked through the documentation I had brought. "Has she made any direct threats?" Officer Kim asked. "She said life was going to get very difficult for me," I said. "I don't know if that counts as a threat." "It's borderline," Officer Kim admitted. "But combined with everything else, it shows a pattern of harassment. Keep documenting everything. If she shows up at your property again, call us immediately. Don't engage with her." "What if she files more false complaints?" I asked. That's something we can address if it continues. Making false reports can be a crime, depending on the circumstances. For now, you've done the right thing by reporting this. I left the police station feeling slightly better. At least I was doing everything I could to protect myself legally. The weekend was quiet, which made me nervous. Patricia seemed like the type who was planning her next move rather than giving up. I caught up on paperwork, serviced my truck, and tried to relax. Monday morning, Linda called me. The restraining order has been filed. Patricia will be served with papers today or tomorrow. The order will prohibit her from coming to your property, contacting you directly, and filing complaints about you without legitimate cause. If she violates it, she can be arrested. How do you think she'll react? I asked. Hard to say. Hopefully it will be a wake-up call. But people like this sometimes see it as an escalation rather than a resolution. Be careful, Owen. That afternoon, I was working on my computer when my doorbell rang. I looked out the window and saw a police car in my driveway. My heart sank. I opened the door to find Officer Kim and another officer I didn't recognize standing on my porch. "Mr. Zimmerman," Officer Kim said, "we need to talk to you about an assault allegation." My blood ran cold. "What?" "Patricia Hendricks has filed a report claiming that you physically assaulted her this morning when she was walking near your property. She says you grabbed her arm and threatened her." "That's completely false," I said. "I haven't seen her in days. I've been here all morning working. I haven't left my house." "Can anyone verify that?" the other officer asked. "I was on a video call with a client from 8 to 9:30, I said. "I can show you my call logs, and I have security cameras. I installed them after she started harassing me. They cover my whole property." Officer Kim's expression shifted slightly. "You have video footage?" "Yes. Come in, I'll show you." I led them to my office and pulled up my security camera footage. The cameras showed every angle of my property, time-stamped and dated. I scrolled through the morning's footage. At no point did Patricia appear on my property. At no point did I leave my house except to take out the trash around 7 in the morning. The two officers watched the footage carefully. The second officer, whose name tag read Brennan, asked, "Can we get a copy of this?" "Absolutely," I said, and emailed them the relevant files. Officer Kim looked troubled. "Mr. Zimmerman, do you want to press charges for filing a false police report?" "I want this to stop," I said. "Will pressing charges make it stop?" "It might. This is serious." She made a specific allegation of assault, which is a crime. Making a false report of a crime is also a crime. With your video evidence, we have clear proof that her allegation is false. "Then yes," I said. "I want to press charges. This has gone too far." The officers took my statement and left. I sat in my office, feeling shaken. Patricia had tried to have me arrested for assault. If I hadn't had those cameras, it would have been her word against mine. I might have been arrested, might have had to hire a criminal defense attorney, might have had my business reputation destroyed. I called Linda and told her what had happened. "Oh, she's done," Linda said, her voice cold. "She just committed a prosecutable crime with clear evidence, and this works in our favor for the restraining order. I'm going to amend our petition to include this incident." "What happens now?" I asked. Now she gets arrested. The police will forward their investigation to the prosecutor's office, and given the clear evidence, charges will almost certainly be filed. False reporting, harassment, possibly stalking, depending on how the prosecutor wants to charge it. She's looking at potential jail time and definite fines. That evening, Derek called me. "Owen, what the hell is happening? Patricia just got arrested." "She filed a false police report claiming I assaulted her," I said. "I have security camera footage proving I never saw her today." "She made it all up." "Jesus," Derek breathed. "She's completely lost it." "Has anyone from the HOA board reached out to you?" I asked. "We're having an emergency meeting tomorrow night. A lot of people want her removed as president immediately." "This is way beyond HOA stuff. Now she's committed an actual crime and tried to frame someone." "Keep me posted," I said. The next few days were a whirlwind. Linda got the restraining order approved. Patricia was formally charged with filing a false police report, a misdemeanor that carried up to 93 days in jail and a $500 fine. The HOA board voted unanimously to remove her as president and ban her from holding any board position in the future. I had to give a deposition to the prosecutor's office, bringing all my documentation and the security camera footage. The assistant prosecutor, a sharp woman named Michelle Torres, reviewed everything and told me they had an airtight case. "People like Mrs. Hendricks usually take a plea deal," Michelle said. "She's looking at potential jail time, probation, community service, and fines. Plus, she'll have a criminal record. Most people in her position don't want to risk going to trial." "What if she does take it to trial?" I asked. "Then we present your evidence, and she gets convicted. Your camera footage is time-stamped and clearly shows she was never on your property. Her own statement to police places the alleged assault at a specific time, and your footage shows you were inside your house at that exact time. Plus, you have phone records showing you were on a work call. It's as clear-cut as these cases get." I left the prosecutor's office feeling a mixture of relief and exhaustion. This whole nightmare had started because I wouldn't do free work. It had escalated to criminal charges and a pending trial. 2 weeks later, Derek texted me. "Patricia took a plea deal. Guilty to false police report, 1-year probation, community service, $500 fine, and she has to stay at least 500 feet away from you." I stared at the text, processing it. It was finally over. The next day, I received a letter from the new HOA president, a reasonable-sounding man named Tom Fletcher. The letter apologized for Patricia's behavior, acknowledged that I had no obligation to the HOA and they had no authority over my property, and invited me to a neighborhood barbecue that summer as a peace offering. It was thoughtful and respectful, the kind of communication Patricia should have started with. I wrote back, accepting the apology and politely declining the barbecue invitation. I had no hard feelings toward the residents of Pinewood Estates, but I also wanted to maintain clear boundaries. They had their community, and I had my independence. Over the following months, life returned to normal. I ran my snow removal business without interference. The city closed all the spurious complaints that had been filed against me. Derek and I got together for beers occasionally, and he filled me in on the neighborhood gossip. Apparently, Patricia and her husband had put their house up for sale and were moving to a different development across town. "She can't handle the embarrassment," Derek explained. "Everyone knows what she did. People avoid her at the grocery store. She brought it on herself, but I almost feel bad for her." "I don't," I said honestly. "She tried to ruin my life because I wouldn't give her free work. She called 911, filed false complaints, tried to manufacture property disputes, and finally tried to have me arrested for assault. All because her entitled ego couldn't handle someone saying no." "Fair enough," Derek said. "Hey, speaking of work, my driveway is a mess." "Are you available this week?" I grinned. "For you?" "Absolutely. Friends and family rate." The hearing at the building department ended up being a formality. Marcus had reviewed all my documentation and determined that every complaint Patricia had filed was baseless. The hearing officer dismissed the case in less than 10 minutes and noted in the record that the complaints appeared to be harassment rather than legitimate concerns. Spring came early that year. The snow melted, and I transitioned my business to landscaping and maintenance work. I planted flowers along my driveway and repainted my barn. My property looked better than ever, and I took satisfaction in maintaining it to my standards, not anyone else's. One warm afternoon in May, I was outside working on my garden when a car pulled into my driveway. I tensed, old instincts kicking in, but relaxed when I saw it was Linda Richardson. "Linda, this is a surprise," I said, pulling off my gardening gloves. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," she said, smiling. "I was in the neighborhood and wanted to check in. How are things going?" "Quiet," I said, which is exactly what I wanted. "Good. I wanted to let you know that Patricia's probation includes mandatory counseling. The judge added that condition because of the escalating pattern of behavior. With any luck, she'll get the help she needs." "I hope so," I said, and I meant it. I wasn't vindictive. I just wanted to be left alone. "Also," Linda continued, "I wanted to tell you that your case has become something of a teaching example in my office. We get a lot of HOA disputes, but few that escalate this far. You did everything right. You documented everything. You knew your rights. You didn't engage in retaliation, and you let the legal system work. It's a good reminder that sometimes the best response to harassment is patience and proper documentation." "I'm glad something good came out of it," I said. After Linda left, I stood in my driveway looking at my property. My 2 acres of independence. My barn, my truck, my business, my home. I had paid for the right to live here on my own terms, and I had defended that right when it was challenged. That night, I got a call from a potential new client who had heard about my business from Derek. She needed regular landscaping services for her small office building in town. We talked about her needs. I quoted her my standard rates, and she hired me on the spot. No drama, no negotiations, no entitlement. Just business. As summer approached, the Pinewood Estates community barbecue happened without me. According to Derek, it was a pleasant event and several residents asked about me. Tom Fletcher, the new HOA president, told everyone that I was welcome in the community anytime, but that they respected my privacy and independence. He said you handled the whole Patricia situation with a lot of class. Derek told me over beers one evening. People respect that. You could have made a huge stink, could have sued the HOA, could have made life difficult for everyone. Instead, you just defended your rights and let the legal system handle Patricia. "I just wanted to be left alone," I said. "That's still all I want." "Well, you've got it. New HOA board is completely hands-off with you. They've made it clear to all residents that you're not part of the association and you're not to be bothered." In July, I saw Patricia one more time. I was at the grocery store, pushing my cart down the cereal aisle when I turned the corner and nearly ran into her. We both froze. She looked different. Older, tired, less polished. The aggressive confidence was gone, replaced by something that might have been embarrassment or shame. "Hello, Owen," she said quietly. "Patricia," I acknowledged. We stood there for an awkward moment. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong." I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity, but all I saw was a defeated woman who had learned an expensive lesson. "Okay," I said. "Thank you for saying that." She nodded and pushed her cart past me. I watched her walk away, feeling a complicated mixture of emotions. I didn't forgive her. What she had done was too serious for that, but I could accept her apology and move forward. By August, Patricia and her husband had moved out of Pinewood Estates. A young couple with 2 small children bought their house. Derek told me they were friendly and normal and had no interest in HOA politics. My business continued to grow. I hired a part-time assistant to help with the increased workload. I bought a second truck. I was making more money than I ever had, and I was doing it on my own terms, serving clients who valued my work and paid me fairly for it. One evening in early September, I sat on my porch watching the sun set over my property. The barn glowed golden in the late light. My truck was parked in its usual spot. The garden I had planted was thriving, full of late summer vegetables and flowers. This was what I had fought for, not just the physical property, but the principle of it. The right to make my own choices, to run my business as I saw fit, to help people when I chose to and decline when I needed to. The right to say no without being punished for it. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Hey man, my neighbor's looking for a good landscaper. Can I give him your number?" I texted back. "Sure, have him call me. Standard rates apply." Derek sent back a laughing emoji. "Obviously, nobody expects you to work for free." I smiled and set my phone down, returning my attention to the sunset. The nightmare with Patricia and the HOA felt like a distant memory now, just a strange chapter in my life that I had closed and moved past. The next morning, I got up early and headed out to my first job of the day. The air was crisp with the first hint of fall, and the roads were clear and dry. It was going to be a good day for work. As I drove past the entrance to Pinewood Estates, I noticed the new sign Tom Fletcher's board had installed. It was tasteful and welcoming, showing the neighborhood at its best. I felt no anger or resentment looking at it. It was just a neighborhood, full of regular people living their lives. They had their community with its rules and fees and meetings. I had my independence and my business and my peace. We coexisted now, with clear boundaries and mutual respect. It was exactly as it should be. My phone rang as I turned onto the highway. It was my assistant, calling to confirm the schedule for the day. We had 3 properties to service and a consultation with a potential new client in the afternoon. I answered and we reviewed the plan, my mind already shifting into work mode. This was my life now, busy, productive, profitable, and mine. I had defended it when it was threatened and I had won. Not because I was aggressive or vengeful, but because I knew my rights. I documented everything, and I let the system work the way it was supposed to. As I drove toward my first job of the day, I thought about the moment that had started everything: Patricia marching across my yard in the snow, demanding free work, unable to comprehend that I didn't owe her anything. If I had just done what she wanted, plowed their lot for free, what would have happened? She would have expected it again the next time, and the time after that. She would have found other ways to exert control, other demands to make. By saying no, by standing firm on my boundaries, I had triggered her rage, but I had also revealed her true character. And ultimately, that revelation had protected me and everyone else in her community from her abuses of power. The dispatcher who told Patricia that I don't work for free had understood something fundamental. People deserve to be paid for their labor, and refusing to work for free isn't just acceptable, it's necessary. It's how we value ourselves and our skills. It's how we maintain healthy boundaries. It's how we prevent people like Patricia from exploiting those boundaries. I pulled into the parking lot of my first client, a medical practice that had been using my services for 5 years. The office manager came out to greet me, smiling and friendly as always. "Owen, thanks for coming out," she said. "The flower beds need some attention, and we want to get everything looking perfect before the fall season really hits." "Not a problem," I said. "Let me take a look and I'll give you an estimate." We walked around the property together, discussing what needed to be done. She asked questions, I provided expert advice, and we agreed on a scope of work and a fair price. It was professional, respectful, and exactly how business should be conducted. As I worked that day, trimming hedges and planting mums, I thought about how different this was from my interactions with Patricia. This client valued my expertise. She paid me fairly. She treated me with respect. In return, I provided excellent service and went above and beyond to make sure she was satisfied. That was the relationship I wanted with all my clients. That was why I had worked so hard to build my business and my reputation. And that was why I had refused to compromise when Patricia tried to bully me into free work. The consultation with the potential new client went well. She was a real estate agent who wanted regular maintenance for several properties she managed. We discussed her needs. I provided references, and she hired me on the spot. Another satisfied client, another successful business relationship built on mutual respect. When I got home that evening, I found a letter in my mailbox from the city of Traverse City. My heart sank for a moment, old instincts, but when I opened it, I found a notice that I had been selected for the Small Business Excellence Award for outstanding service and community contribution. The ceremony would be held next month at City Hall. I stood in my driveway, holding the letter, feeling an unexpected surge of emotion. After everything that had happened, after being harassed and accused and treated like a criminal, the city was recognizing my business as excellent. It felt like vindication. Derek was thrilled when I told him. "That's huge, man. The Small Business Excellence Award is a big deal. You should be proud." "I am," I said. "It feels good to be recognized for doing things the right way." The award ceremony was surprisingly moving. The mayor gave a speech about the importance of small businesses to the community. Several award recipients were recognized for different categories. When my name was called for outstanding service, I walked to the front of the room and shook the mayor's hand. "Your clients wrote some incredible testimonials," the mayor told me as she handed me the plaque. "They talked about your professionalism, your reliability, and your integrity. That's exactly the kind of business owner we want to celebrate in this city." I looked out at the audience and saw several of my clients in attendance, smiling and applauding. I saw Linda Richardson, who had taken time out of her busy schedule to come support me. I saw Derek and his wife, grinning broadly. What I didn't see was Patricia, or anyone who had doubted me or harassed me or tried to tear me down. They were gone, irrelevant, while I was being celebrated for the work I had built through honesty and effort. In my acceptance speech, I kept it brief. "Thank you for this recognition. I started my business 7 years ago with one truck and a commitment to doing quality work for fair prices. I've been fortunate to serve this community and build relationships with wonderful clients who value what I do. This award means a lot to me, and I'm grateful to everyone who has supported my business over the years." The applause was genuine and warm. After the ceremony, several people came up to congratulate me and ask about my services. I handed out business cards and made several new connections. It was one of the best nights I had had in a long time. As fall deepened into winter, the snow returned. I was ready with my truck, my equipment, and my list of loyal clients who depended on me. The first big snowfall of the season hit in late November, and I worked through the night clearing parking lots and driveways. When I drove past Pinewood Estates that night, I noticed their lot had already been cleared by their contracted service. The entrance was well lit and welcoming. Everything looked orderly and well maintained. Their system was working exactly as it should without needing me at all. I smiled to myself and drove on to my next job. They had their community, and I had mine, a community of clients and friends and business relationships built on respect and fair dealing. It wasn't defined by property lines or HOA boundaries. It was defined by mutual trust and reciprocity. That winter was one of the busiest I had ever had. The snow seemed endless, and the calls kept coming. My assistant became full-time, and I brought on a second part-time worker to keep up with demand. My business was thriving in ways I had never imagined when I started 7 years ago. In February, I got a call from a reporter at the Traverse City Record Eagle. She was doing a story on successful small businesses and wanted to interview me. We met at a local coffee shop, and I told her about starting my business, growing it through word of mouth, and my commitment to quality service. "I heard you had some trouble with an HOA last year," she said. "Do you want to comment on that?" I thought for a moment. "I'd prefer to focus on the positive. What I will say is that standing up for yourself and your boundaries is important, especially as a business owner. Not every job is worth taking, and it's okay to say no when something doesn't work for you." The article came out a week later, featuring my business alongside 2 other local success stories. The reporter had focused on my growth and my commitment to customer service, mentioning the HOA incident only briefly as an example of the challenges small business owners sometimes face. The article brought more business. My phone rang constantly with new inquiries. I had to turn down work because I couldn't keep up with the demand. It was a good problem to have. Spring came again, and with it the transition back to landscaping season. I hired 2 more part-time workers to handle the increased volume. My little one-man operation had become a real company, with employees and growing revenue and a reputation for excellence. One warm April afternoon, I was at a nursery selecting plants for a client when I ran into Tom Fletcher, the HOA president from Pinewood Estates. "Owen," he said, extending his hand. "Good to see you." I shook his hand. "Tom, how are things in the neighborhood?" "Good, really good. We've got a great board now, very focused on actual community needs rather than power trips. I wanted to thank you, actually." "Thank you for what?" I asked, surprised. "For handling the situation with Patricia the way you did. You could have made things very difficult for all of us, but you kept it focused on her behavior specifically. A lot of residents learned from that situation about boundaries, about respecting people's rights, about not abusing authority. It was an expensive lesson for Patricia, but a valuable one for the rest of us." "I appreciate you saying that," I said. "I never wanted a war with your community. I just wanted to protect my property and my business. And you did it the right way. Listen, we're having our annual meeting next month, and I'd like to invite you to attend as a guest. Not to join the HOA," he added quickly, seeing my expression, "but just to help us understand the perspective of adjacent property owners. We want to be good neighbors, and your input would be valuable." I considered it. The old me, scarred by Patricia's harassment, would have refused immediately, but Tom had proven himself to be reasonable, and this was an olive branch. "I'll think about it," I said. "Send me the details." "I will. And Owen, if you ever need anything from us, if there's ever a legitimate issue between your property and ours, please come to us directly. We want to work with you, not against you." We parted on good terms, and I found myself actually considering attending that meeting. Not to become involved in HOA politics, but to help them understand how to be better neighbors to the properties around them. In the end, I did attend the meeting. I sat in the back and listened as the board discussed normal community business landscaping contracts, pool maintenance, road repairs. When Tom introduced me and asked if I wanted to share any thoughts, I kept it simple. "I appreciate the invitation," I said. "My main message is this: remember that not everyone in your vicinity is part of your association. Respect those boundaries. If you need something from a neighbor, approach it as a request between equals, not a demand from authority. And if someone says no, respect that answer. Several residents nodded. One man raised his hand. What if there's a legitimate issue, like someone's tree hanging over into our property? Then you address it through proper channels, I said. You don't file spurious complaints or try to manufacture disputes. You talk to the property owner respectfully, and if you can't resolve it that way, you get legal or municipal authorities involved. But you do it honestly and in good faith. The meeting continued, and I slipped out after about an hour. I had said what I needed to say, and I hoped it would make a difference in how they approached neighboring properties in the future. Summer arrived with its long days and warm nights. My business was busier than ever. I bought a third truck and hired another full-time employee. What had started as a one-man operation was now a legitimate company with 6 employees and a growing client base. One evening in July, almost exactly a year after Patricia had apologized to me in the grocery store, Derek called with news. "You'll never guess who I saw today," he said. "Who?" "Patricia. She was at the courthouse. I was there dealing with a parking ticket and I saw her going into one of the courtrooms." "Is she in trouble again?" I asked. "No idea, but she looked different, calmer maybe, less angry." "I don't know if the counseling helped or if she's just learned to hide it better, but she seemed different." "I hope she's doing better," I said, and I meant it. I had no desire for revenge or to see her suffer. I just wanted her to leave me alone and hopefully learn from her mistakes. "You're a better person than me," Derek said. "I'm still mad on your behalf about what she put you through." "I can't hold on to anger forever," I said. "It happened, I dealt with it, and I moved on. That's all you can do." As August rolled around, I realized it had been nearly 18 months since that first morning when Patricia had marched across my yard demanding free snow removal. 18 months since she had called 911, and the dispatcher had told her I don't work for free. It felt like a lifetime ago. My business continued to grow, my reputation continued to strengthen, and my independence remained intact. I had weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. One crisp morning in September, I was working on a landscape design for a new client when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. "Is this Owen Zimmerman?" a woman's voice asked. "Speaking." "This is Jennifer Martinez from the Michigan Small Business Association. I'm calling to let you know that you've been nominated for the Regional Small Business Owner of the Year award." The nomination came from multiple sources, including the city of Traverse City and several of your clients. I sat back in my chair, stunned. I don't know what to say. The award recognizes business owners who have demonstrated exceptional growth, community impact, and ethical business practices. Based on your nomination materials, you're a strong candidate. The selection committee will make their decision next month, and the award ceremony is in November in Lansing. After the call ended, I sat in my office looking around at the business I had built. The filing cabinets full of satisfied client records, the schedule board showing weeks of booked jobs, the photos on the wall of completed projects. I had started this business with nothing but a truck, some equipment, and a determination to do honest work for fair pay. I had built it through early mornings and long nights, through building relationships and maintaining standards, through saying yes to the right opportunities and no to the wrong ones. And when someone had tried to tear it down, I had defended it. Not with aggression or retaliation, but with documentation and boundaries, and letting the system work as it should. In November, I attended the Regional Small Business Owner of the Year ceremony in Lansing. I didn't win that honor went to a woman who had built a remarkable manufacturing company from the ground up, but being nominated was honor enough. I networked with other business owners, learned from their experiences, and came home inspired to keep growing. Winter came again, bringing snow and cold and endless work. My team was ready. We had refined our systems, improved our efficiency, and expanded our client base. We worked through storms and cleared hundreds of properties, earning every dollar through skill and effort. One snowy night in December, I found myself driving past Pinewood Estates again. Their lot was cleared, their streets were maintained, and everything looked peaceful and orderly. I felt nothing but satisfaction looking at it. They had their system, I had mine, and we coexisted without conflict. That's when I realized I had truly moved past what had happened. It was no longer a wound or a source of anger. It was just a story, a challenge I had faced and overcome, a reminder of why boundaries matter and why standing up for yourself is important. As I drove on to my next job, snow falling steadily in my headlights, I thought about that dispatcher who had told Patricia, "I don't work for free." That simple statement had captured everything: the value of labor, the importance of fair compensation, the right to decline work that doesn't serve you. Those words had become my mantra in a way. I don't work for free. Not because I'm greedy or unkind, but because I value myself and my skills. Because I've built something worth protecting. Because I deserve to be compensated fairly for what I do. And anyone who can't understand or respect that isn't someone I need in my life or my business. The snow continued to fall, and I continued to work, clearing paths and making spaces safe and accessible. It was honest work, valuable work, and I was proud of it. I had built a business, weathered a storm, and come out stronger. That's really all anyone can ask for: the chance to build something meaningful, the strength to defend it when necessary, and the wisdom to know the difference between a fight worth having and one best walked away from. I had learned all of those lessons over the past 2 years, and they had made me not just a better business owner, but a better person. I had learned to document everything, to know my rights, to stand firm when necessary, and to be gracious in victory. Most importantly, I had learned that saying no isn't selfish, it's self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of everything else. As I pulled into the parking lot of my next client and prepared to drop my blade and clear their snow, I smiled to myself. This was my life now, built on my terms, defended when challenged, and stronger for having survived the test. And I wouldn't change any of it.